Okay, I'm going to open the doors now, so just wait 1 minute before you start. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Should we begin now?
Please go ahead.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, welcome to this side event of the 2023 SDG Summit entitled Addressing Global Water Insecurity, Harnessing the Power of Big Data, Novel Technologies, and International Collaboration. I would like to briefly welcome you on behalf of UNiTAR before our United Nations Assistant Secretary General takes the floor. Also to acknowledge the contribution of York University, who will also be represented here by one of its vice presidents, and the support received from United Nations University. Today, we have an impressive array of speakers, and as importantly, we have hundreds of participants hailing from very many countries that are honoring us with their time and effort. So without further ado, allow me to offer the floor to Mr. Nikhil Seth, United Nations Assistant Secretary General and Executive Director of UNiTAR. Mr. Seth, welcome.
Dr. Asif, Sapna, representatives from the UNU, and all you very, very distinguished panelists. I think I'll be doing great injustice if I take the floor for too long a time, because we have such a wealth of expertise on the kind of issue that we get into tonight, that I just wanted to say this, that in March, when we had the UN Water Conference, once in several decades conference, powered by Shaba Qureshi, the President of the General Assembly, a person I'd worked very closely with on the Sustainable Development Goals development. His major passion was with the goal on integrated water management. And I could see the passion which he brought into hosting of that conference. And he told me, I'm now in Geneva, so he did tell me that, look, I want some tangibles out of this conference. I don't want it to be another talk show, and nothing really happened. So I said that, look, what I'm going to try and do, President Shaba Qureshi, is to try and twin the world of research and academia with the world of capacity building. Because often the research doesn't really penetrate as deeply as it should to make difference in a situation or in the lives of people. And water, I'm preaching to the choir, but water and water insecurity and changing the trajectory of water insecurity is probably one of the toughest challenges of humankind. Often when I think of climate change, I think that the way climate change manifests itself is essentially through water. Too much of it, too little of it, very violent outcomes, either through hurricanes or through intense natural events. And this is going to be interlocking to create a more and more water insecure world. Today, you're going to focus on data, technology, and so on, to see how can we use big data, technology, and the other advances in technology to become our friends in trying to get to a world which is more water secure. And I just wanted to cite two examples from my own organization. And the Swiss government gave us a very generous grant to do the entire water mapping of Chad. And through satellite analysis, the Swiss told me that we did it really cost effectively. They said that even if we tried to do this for Switzerland, it would cost them 3-4 times the amount it cost us to have a full freshwater map of Chad. And the Chadian government wanted it because they said that, look, where our populations are going to move, where we're going to promote cities, depends on what you show us on what is happening to water in our country. And I have this group of 31 PhDs from our satellite. We are the UN Satellite Center. And they became geologists also by looking at the image of a red rock. They could predict if there's water there or not. So I could understand what power satellite technology, for example, has to do. And of course, now there are drones when the cloud cover is too heavy and the satellite imagery is not good enough. The second thing we did 2-3 years ago is on flood forecasting, where the satellite division again wove AI into the algorithms for flood water prediction. And they did a great job, including for the floods in Pakistan, which happened not so long ago. These are the two practical things I've seen in my sphere of work, which I said that, look, what we need to do is to get these capacities to everyone. If there are FEMA equivalents in all small countries, why don't they have the capacity to be able to do them themselves? Why do they have to wait or depend on some distant UN organization somewhere? So I see the creation of the Water Academy, and I thank York University very deeply because they are doing most of the heavy hitting. INWEH of UNU, they are more on the research side, but it has to be bringing all this together, you know, research, capacity building, academic dissemination, and use what we can. This is more in the sphere of academic learning, the subject that we are going to dig into today. And I really look forward to hearing from you. Where is it you think that we can work together to spread this knowledge to where it's needed most, to the most distressed, the most vulnerable, including the small island development states? Many of them risk to be completely swamped by water. It's a different thing. It's not a freshwater problem. But to see where this tsunami is the wrong word, I suppose, but where this crisis is going and what can we do using technology and data to help countries handle it better. So just thank you very much for being here. I really look forward to listening to you. And I appreciate the fact that in this UN circus, which happens every year, where there's so much activity taking place in every little corner of this big building, you've taken the time to be with us and to help us, to help York University, and to help UNU chart a better future in this particular area. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seth. The next introduction is very important, but I have to do some justice before I give the floor to Dr. Amir Asif, Vice President for Research and Innovation at York University in Canada. I need to say two things. One of them to echo my Assistant Secretary General at UNiTAR. I serve under him. When Mr. Seth, as he mentioned, welcomed the idea of the President of the General Assembly that will soon be stepping down, the vision was to amalgamate forces, to be inclusive, to be strategic, to invite as many organizations and individuals, both, that could contribute to this global quest to build a truly global water training entity, a global water academy, as we have called it during the first phase. To do so, he commissioned myself and the division that I lead with finding a university that could actually do the job, There are very many universities, very prestigious universities around the world that has the expertise, that has the people behind, and that indeed could help us to put together this novel organization. But with York University, it had a very successful and productive strategic partnership. UNiTAR has 31 affiliated training centers around the world. They are called CFAL, the CFAL Global Network. And one of the most excellent of them is already located at York University. So my Assistant Secretary General engaged with the president of York University, Professor Rhonda Lenton. And from that conversation, then things started to flow. We have done several events so far. Dr. Amir Asif team, and I will properly introduce the person actually leading us in the day-to-day, that is sitting to my right, but I'll get to that. Your team, Dr. Asif, is the one that has empowered UNiTAR to do this, to bring this to fruition. And I simply wanted to express our appreciation and also to say that there are very many things ahead that we will be doing together. And that, of course, is quite an honor for us. So without further ado and expressing our appreciation again, allow me to give now the floor to Dr. Amir Asif, Vice President for Research and Innovation at York University. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nikhil Seth and Dr. Alex Mahaya, for your support in co-hosting today's event for the UNiTAR Global Water Academy, the creation of which, as you rightly said, was announced at the UN Water Conference in the winter term. I'm pleased to be here with you as we all come together with our partners at UNiTAR and at UN University to host this important event to coincide with the SDG Summit. As a leading international research and teaching institution in Toronto, Canada, York University is honored to be the academic lead for the UNiTAR Global Water Academy. York University is a force for positive change, and our university is ranked among the top 40 universities in the world for advancing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And this ranking includes about 1,700 universities across the planet. As an institution, York University is committed in advancing our contributions to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals across our research, teaching, and service activities. As was previously mentioned, York is one of 2 universities in Canada and 25 worldwide that are part of the UNiTAR's global network of training centers for knowledge sharing, training, and capacity building for leaders, local authorities, and civil society. It is referred to as the CFEL Center. In addition, the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, UNECE, established the Toronto Center of Excellence on Youth Homelessness Prevention, the first Geneva UN Charter Center of Excellence in North America at York University in 2021. York University has a strong record of institutional support for world-class research across faculties. For example, York University hosts the Water-Focused Organized Research Unit, also referred to as University Center of Excellence, called mWater. mWater strives to understand and develop solutions to the ongoing water sustainability crisis, attract and train future leaders in the field, and educate the public on water issues in Canada and around the world. Today's panel will discuss the solutions we need to effectively tackle such a complex issue such as global water insecurity, and how we can make substantial progress on achieving SDG 6, ensuring access to water and sanitation for all, if we are all here to see universal coverage by the year 2030. Because right now in the world, water insecurity poses a tremendous threat to the health and well-being of many communities. These water-stressed places can also be confronted with the compounding crisis of conflict and climate change, adding further complexities to how to solve this issue. The threat of water insecurity can be a matter of life or death, particularly in the global south, where thousands of people die each year from waterborne diseases and poor sanitation. This is sadly especially true for marginalized groups in the society who are disproportionately affected, including Indigenous and Black peoples, women, and children. Water insecurity is such an equity issue as it is a sustainability issue. The challenge we face with the global water crisis is immense, and it demands a response of equal measure. The UNiTAR Global Water Academy and events like today's panel can help us envision the forward-thinking response the world needs, and one that embraces big data, cutting-edge technologies, and an all-hands-on-deck approach. These elements are essential to deepening our understanding of water-related issues, developing scientific solutions, and advancing SDG 6. They're also all part of the Academy's effort to deliver innovative training and accessible education on sustainable water management practices, which need to be able to be reproduced and scaled up worldwide. This work to build capacity and to mobilize global action is of profound importance to meeting the challenges ahead, and we must meet them together. York University understands the collaborative power between experts and industry, and that is what has helped us to shape the UNiTAR Global Water Academy under the able leadership of Dr. Nikhil Seth and Dr. Alex Mahaya. We hope to harness this power and work with groups from across the globe to carry out the Academy's mission to improve water insecurity. By working together, we can create a positive change and help make things right for our communities, our planet, and our future. Thank you once again for this opportunity. And based on my notes, I now have the pleasure of introducing today's panel moderator, Dr. Sapna Sharma. Alex, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Dr. Sharma is a professor in the Faculty of Science at York University and a York Research Chair in Global Change Biology. Her research highlights how lakes worldwide respond to climate change. She has been named one of Canada's top 10 women water scientists and is a fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, College of New Scholars, Artists, and Scientists. Please welcome Sapna. Thank you once again, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you all. So I'm just going to start introducing the panel and how we got to working on this topic today. We're all aware that over 2 billion people unjustly do not have access to clean water, fresh water worldwide. Yet quantifying the extent of global water insecurity can sometimes be difficult because of compounding factors such as water quality issues, water quantity issues, watershed factors, governance, value, and also climate change and other multiple environmental stressors. But the future of water security really lies in collaborations across disciplines, being inclusive, and creating these interdisciplinary networks to study water science. So here's a textbook that's actually going to be published, I think, next week. It's Wetzel's Limnology, and limnology is the study of inland waters. And John Small and Ian Jones are editors of this new textbook, and they invited water scientists from around the world to pen different chapters. I was fortunate enough to lead the last chapter of the book, envisioning the future of limnology, with my friends and colleagues, Stephanie Hampton from the Carnegie Institution for Science, and Ismail Kimarai from the Tanzania Fisheries Research Institute. And what we titled this chapter was "The Future of Limnology is Interdisciplinary, Collaborative, Inclusive, and Global." And part of our vision was bringing together new technologies, remote sensing approaches, modeling, simulation modeling, as well as observations from around the globe, creating open data, sharing data widely, but also having information associated with that data so that people can use it. Being more transdisciplinary, working across boundaries, as well as inclusive. Inclusivity is an important component because by including more individuals from diverse backgrounds, that will spark creative solutions to water insecurity. And so those are some of the ideas that we foresaw as important as we lead to dealing with the challenges of freshwater insecurity, and sort of form the basis for today's panel and our amazing suite of speakers that we've invited today. And this can seem a little theoretical. So as an ecologist, I wanted to also bring in a practical example. One of my research areas is studying the impacts of climate change on lake ice. And lake ice, there's several reasons why lake ice is so important and interesting to study. So some of our in situ records actually extend long before the start of the Industrial Revolution. So for example, one of our data sets extends millennia collected by Shinto priests from Lake Suwa in Japan, who keep records of how climate and how lakes are responding to climate change long before the advent of meteorological stations. And so what we're envisioning is there's so many different groups studying ice, and they've brought together so much knowledge, but we've done it in silos. And what we're trying to do in the last several years or so is breaking those silos, breaking those barriers, and welcoming observation scientists, remote sensing scientists, modelers, community members, to come together to think about how do we really understand the global patterns and causes and drivers of lake ice around the world. So that sort of is what we're envisioning for today's panel. And just to set the stage, we're first going to hear from Drs. Kaveh Madani and Lina Taing from UN University, who are going to talk about SDG 6, what are our data gaps, what are our knowledge, what do we know to this day, and then we're going to move to how to kind of start filling in those data gaps. We'll start with Michael Jasinski from NASA, who's going to talk about some exciting missions, the SWAT mission and other missions to understand and characterize fresh water around the world. We'll then move on to Dr. Annie Feighery, who's the CEO and co-founder of mWater, this amazing open access data platform that shares data freely across countries. And then we'll end with some discussions on collaborations and how to move towards inclusive collaborations and networks to actually tackle water insecurity. And so to start, I'd like to welcome Dr. Kaveh Madani, Director of the United Nations University Institute for Environment, Water, and Health. Dr. Madani, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. We're very thankful for our colleagues at UNiTAR, and as well as our neighbor York University and our new partner for organizing this session, and also very excited to support the UNiTAR's Water Academy, Global Water Academy effort, with the understanding that, first of all, we are, all of the UN agencies get a lot of things done around the world, and we have to share resources and make sure there are no replications, and we just make each other stronger and reinforce the good things that we are doing. And second, because we know how much we need the academics and the experts within the global academic system to be essentially partnered with us in delivering on our mandates and missions and goals. So we are very excited and congratulate both UNiTAR and York University for this effort, and it's a wonderful start. Great job. Now, speaking about water on behalf of the United Nations University Institute for Water, Environment, and Health, known as the United Nations Water Think Tank, our mission is to raise awareness about water. We are very lucky that this year is an unprecedented year in terms of the attention to water. The last COP, Climate Change COP, also was a golden moment for water. with the attention increasing to water finally becoming part of the climate change negotiations. The next COP also in the Middle East would be another opportunity for paying extra attention to water. It's surprising to some people when we say that the lack of progress on SDG 6 is hurting the progress on other SDGs, but by design, the SDGs are independent, interdependent, and if you fail in one sector, all other sectors would get affected. We know by bad experience about what is happening around the world, from the floods in different parts of the world, and now the flood in Libya, which is another, I think, eye-opener for us, that not only lack of investment in infrastructure, lack of attention to the extreme events can affect people, but also political tensions and lack of stability in governments limit the bandwidth of nations to pay attention to water security matters. Something that a lot of times we don't pay attention to. We are very interested in the downstream implications of water, national security implications of water insecurity, but we don't pay attention to how insecurity actually can result in water shortage and lack of access and other disasters. And I think this is also an eye-opener for us. The two of the reports we have published this year, one is dealing with water security, the first global assessment of the progress of nations on water security, with very alarming results. And then the second is a recent one published this month, and it's about the socioeconomic actually and demographic essentially characteristics of people living behind levees and water infrastructure in the United States as one, a global north country and an advanced economy. Even in advanced economies, we have problems, and these problems are serious, and essentially the injustice implications of lack of investment in water resources and infrastructure is causing a lot of trouble. Now, another major issue here is that we are correctly heavily invested in the water and sanitation, the sanitation and health component on water security, and that is correct. We should do that, but we should also understand that in the world, we have 70% of the water in the world goes to the agricultural sector. Farmers are the ones who are producing our food. Any impact on the water sector can manipulate and interrupt the global supply chain of food, but also causing unemployment, migration, and other security problems that would not be limited to specific boundaries. And this is something for which we're not prepared for, and I think we have not made a good progress. Now, but on the positive side, although we understand that most of the people live in water scarce areas, and even stronger GDP doesn't guarantee water prosperity and water security, we know we are in an unprecedented time with the power of the fourth industrial revolution to remotely sense, to measure, to map, sitting in our offices in Geneva and Canada and other places and helping the rest of the world. That is incredible, and I'm sure we're hearing more about this. In the UN Water at the UN Water Conference, we also heard that. And if you go to a lot of meetings and side events, you hear politicians, experts talking about data. At the same time, we got to be very careful about what data implies and what it brings. Data doesn't necessarily bring wisdom. There is a process to turn data into useful information. And those researchers who are working, are interested in grassroots research and working with communities and understanding the context are the ones who can succeed in this game. Otherwise, actually, too much data can be somehow misleading, and as we saw during the last pandemic. So I'm looking forward to the discussion by other panelists about this. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you, Kaveh. Next, we will hear from Dr. Lina Taing, a senior researcher at the United Nations University.
Thank you, Sapna. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lina Taing. I work at UNU Institute for Water, Environment, and Health. And today I'm going to be presenting the results from our Global Water Security 2023 assessment, highlighting especially the research challenges and needs that we found when trying to conduct a quantifiable form of what is water security globally, right? And I'm hoping that as a panel, we'll be able to discuss the way forward when we're talking about addressing research challenges to ensure that we're moving towards a more water secure world. So, big question first. What is water security? We tend to look at this from the lens of a negative light first, right? We think of it not as water security, but water insecurity. And that is in terms of scarcity. We don't have water. But this is a really narrow understanding, actually, because water can be both a threat, but as Kaveh just highlighted, it also can be an important population safeguard as well. So for this report, what we adopted was a holistic understanding of water security that looks at or frames water security in terms of being a population safeguard for, let's have a light, okay, for economic development, human health and well-being, climate resilience, and ecosystems. So the definition that we use specifically is from UNWater from 2013, which is it's quite long-winded, but it is important to discuss and highlight. So I'm going to read it aloud. The capacity of a population to safeguard sustainable access to adequate quantities of acceptable quality water for sustaining livelihoods, human well-being, and socioeconomic development, for ensuring protection against waterborne pollution and water-related disasters, and for preserving ecosystems in a climate of peace and political stability. What we tried to do with our 2023 assessment was to conduct a multidimensional assessment, looking at this holistic understanding of water insecurity, where we assessed 186 countries, home to 7.8 billion people. And what was the purpose of that? To inform policymaking, funding, as well as SDG acceleration going forward. When we talk about multidimensional understanding, we framed it in terms of 10 different components, from water access, quality, and availability, sanitation access, health in terms of good health and well-being, but specifically WASH-attributed mortalities, WASH being water, sanitation, and hygiene, economic value, governance, safety, when we think about human as well as economic safety factors, and resource stability. So I'm not going to dive into all of our findings. It's a rather long report, and you can find it online on our website. But I will highlight some of the major findings. So, and what were they? One of the main ones is that we found that 78% of the global population, that is 6.1 billion people, 6.1 billion people live in water insecure countries. So put differently, we're talking about 3 out of 4 people living in a water insecure context when we talk about it being either critically water insecure or water insecure. Of those, there were 16 low-income countries from throughout Africa, as well as South Asia, and 7 small island developing states that were critically insecure. What we also found was that having abundant natural water availability did not necessarily translate into universal water access and all of the benefits that come with universal water access. So you see here, the map on the left is looking at availability in terms of stress when we talk about global supplies. And then on the right, we are talking about universal drinking water access, both basic and safely managed water. And unfortunately, as you can see, the maps aren't necessarily corresponding, right? Just because you have water doesn't mean necessarily that people are getting it in their taps. People are getting it in their homes. So when we talk about household access, we're talking about 1 out of 4 globally lacking safe water, safe household water. We're talking about 2 out of 5 people not having safe sanitation in their homes. We're talking about 1 out of 4 people not being able to wash their hands in their homes. So it's quite important, as we say, like when we're talking about water insecurity, to think beyond just that actual water resource, but also thinking about that impact, that socioeconomic impact on the people that should have access to these very important services. One other big finding, there are a lot of findings in the report, but this is one that I do want to highlight too, is that no one is immune from the impact of water-related disasters. As Mr. Nikhil Seth had noted, a lot of climate disasters, actually, when we think about it, manifest as a water problem. And he's right. When we look at the data for that, 75% of climate disasters are water-related. And what does that speak to in terms of your impact? We're talking about human, we're talking about the economic factors. So in terms of human lives, we're talking about 10,000 people lost annually because of climate risks. Sorry, I don't have the economic safety numbers, but we're talking here now, again, major impacts. And this is something that we need to address if we're talking about moving into becoming a water secure world. So, I think it's stuck. Are you able to get it? Okay. Yep. So our assessment importantly put forward a measurable and comparable way to quantify national water security. But I also want to note that it wasn't an easy undertaking for us, and we were limited by critical data and methodological challenges, some of which were related to data availability, data disaggregation, data set harmonization, and limited open data to actually represent this complex indicators, including the complex understanding that we have of water security, right? There isn't a water security indicator. No, as you saw, we had to combine multiple indicators for this. Going forward, UNU-INWEH hopes to update this assessment regularly with new research partners, such as everybody in this room. And hence, we're really excited to have a conversation with the rest of this esteemed panel when we're talking about how can we improve reporting for the remainder of the SDG era? And how can we utilize new technologies, open access databases, and collaborative partnerships to provide accurate and confident analyses of the extents and causes of global water security moving forward, particularly in regions where we might have data or resources that are limited. So all of this actually falls falls in alignment with the UN 2.0 Quintet of Change initiative, which was launched at this SDG Summit, in the sense that we're looking at how can we use data, innovation, and digital approaches to improve decision-making based on foresight and insights from behavior science. So I leave this now to the panel for a discussion. Thank you to UNiTAR and to York for having UNU-INWEH join us, and looking forward to some debate.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lina, for setting the stage. Okay, so next up, we're going to hear from Dr. Michael Jasinski, a research scientist with the Hydrological Sciences Laboratory at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Well, I want to thank the UN and Dr. Sharma and the organizers for inviting NASA to this panel. We are very proud and humbled at the same time for being invited and contributing with this group of distinguished speakers. So, of course, NASA is a very large organization, and we do multiple elements of water sector type science. We construct we're most known really for developing and constructing innovative technology as it becomes available in the public for looking at all different types of elements of the Earth system. And these can be retrieval of parameters from the atmosphere, humidity profiles, wind speed, to parameters of the land surface, including soil moisture, which is very important, runoff, stream flow, and subsurface water, groundwater even in the most recent years, as well as water quality. And for each of these satellites, as they become developed and mature and new satellites become available, NASA makes a purpose to produce these, when the data developed from these products, from these sensors, they are published and freely made available to the public and in multiple open resources. And I'll show those in a minute. In addition to building the instruments and launching satellites, we also help develop the actual models that using these data will improve. These include weather models or climate models or land surface models. And finally, all this work is done through funded research for which universities, private sector individuals can compete and write proposals for. Okay, there's one important element here that I think sets NASA apart a little bit, is that it is NASA's premise for doing this work stems from Earth system science, which was a theme that was a phrase that was coined back in the 80s that says we don't look at the stovepipe different parts of the water cycle, but we want to understand like how all these work together, and a perturbation to one component then impacts on another. Now this concept actually fits in very well with the use of with the sense of a sustainable development, because what one can do is, once you know how this Earth system is working, once you have the data that you can look at it globally, you can then use these models to see how perturbations due to development or overdevelopment can be either helpful or harmful further to the climate and to the Earth system. Okay, a lot of words on this page, but I'm going to make it really brief. NASA has already been involved quite substantially with the UN through the Office of Outer Space Affairs, as well with the Committee on the Peaceful Use of Outer Space. Also, as far as its work in the climate strategy, there's recent, let me get this straight. This past year, NASA has produced an entire strategy on how they're going to analyze climate in the future. And this is published and online. And this has been developed by many people in and outside NASA has contributed to this. And it's available to all folks, scientists, decision makers, and the public. And you can see this online, and we've made some QR codes for people can look at immediately. Okay, this is my favorite slide in any talk. This is the NASA Earth fleet. We all like to show this, okay? And it takes a long time to go through it, so I'll make it quick. But basically, it shows sort of the time series of the various satellites that have contributed, that NASA have built, with various components of the Earth system, right? So what I did was I put on top of here the different components of the water cycle for these different satellites. So for instance, at the top here, we have the GRACE missions, beautiful missions that use the technology of measuring the differential pull of the gravity on the tug on the satellite to understand changes in groundwater. And there's also, next to was the ISAT mission, which was a LiDAR mission. Did not have any gravity instruments in it, but just for the high resolution LiDAR was able to look at millimeter scale changes in the ice caps, but is also then applied to inland water and ocean surfaces. And on. Soil moisture is a big one. The SMAP mission is it's not shown here with a red line, but the SMAP mission at the top here measures soil moisture. Soil moisture, I think, would be very critical to sustainable development number 2. It's agriculture. Agriculture is basically pretty much controlled by the amount of soil moisture, and the deficit between that soil moisture and the atmospheric soil moisture deficit. So we measure soil moisture regularly, and farmers use this for looking at drought and prediction of cropping times and the irrigation requirements needed. So I think this is a useful slide. Okay, I'm going to skip that for a minute. So the newest mission that was just launched, and is really the flagship hydrology mission launched by NASA and its co-partners, is called the SWOT, the Surface Water Ocean Topography Mission. Now, this is an unprocessed shot of SWOT. The data are not out yet. Okay, it was launched. They're still going through a calibration phase and stuff. But this is a spot here at the Yukon River, near the very mouth. It can show how this river is so complex. It's braided. There's these islands in between. There's a lot of ponds and things. And how would you do this with Landsat data or Sentinel data or other groundwater data? This would be very difficult. So the difference here, so this is the challenge here. And this was taken in June 18th, 2023. But instead of having all those different missions trying to fly this area, and you say, well, this pond's got this much water on it, this one has a height of such and such, the SWOT mission actually does this for you. It's ingenious technology, but this is just an animation. If you go to this QR code here, you'll actually see the animation of this. This was developed before the mission was launched, but it's crossing over Southern California, and you can see it's giving you the topography of the ocean and also the locations in California, in Florida here, where for each pond, each river that it crossed. So it's really a breakthrough mission, and it's not just a NASA mission. It was jointly developed by NASA, the French, CNES, the Canadian Space Agency, and the British Space Agency as well. So we look forward to getting more results and making these available to the public. Okay, just some other examples of the type of data. This is a NISAR, a prototype of a NISAR mission that is expected to be launched next spring. This actual image is from the Japanese pulsar data, which was flown, and from 2007 to 2011, and what it actually shows is the effect of over withdrawal of groundwater, and the contours in here represent the deformation of the surface due to the withdrawal of the underground water. And that's one way to estimate, like, well, how much water have you taken out? Well, the land has subsided by that certain amount. Here's another mission, the GRACE gravity missions. And we have a couple examples here of what can that tell? Well, over here on the Okavango Delta in Botswana, we can see that over this time series of about, I think it was about a 15-year time series, the white line represents the amount of the groundwater was increasing, and you can see in cubic kilometers for that basin in Botswana how that has been increasing, right? In contrast to that, at the same time in Saudi Arabia, in the drier areas, they were trying to open up new irrigated land and pumping from the groundwater to to supply the water for the irrigation. But in 2014, they stopped because Grace said, you're losing your groundwater reserves and they're not being replenished. So they stopped pumping here, and you can see that it was starting to go back up. This bottom image here is sort of a global time series of the rise and the fall of the total water storage on Earth, with the blue meaning increasing in water and red decreasing. But this, just shows that one can monitor the total water storage, the groundwater of the Earth using space-based technology. This effort was a joint effort between NASA and the German space agency, DLR. Okay, a new mission that's out, it's coming out. I thought it was important to mention water quality is PACE, the Plankton Aerosol Cloud Ocean Ecosystem Instrument. The new technology in this, how it is advanced past what Landsat is doing, or what Sentinel is doing, is that the actual frequencies that they're looking at are very, very narrow. The oceans have thousands of different types of zooplankton in them, right? So, but each of those zooplankton and phytoplankton have their own signatures. So by looking at these in a higher resolution, one can actually do a better job distinguishing the different types of harmful, let's say harmful algae blooms or that are in the ocean. It's like we lost something. So, they're very excited. I was on an applied sciences meeting with them the other day, just as an attendee. There were over 1,000 attendees in that seminar. Okay. There's also future missions. We don't just come up at NASA ourselves and say we're going to do these specific missions. This is all run through the National Academy of Sciences that help take the ideas, put them out to the public, get feedback, have committees, and then sort of decide as a scientific group what are the important future missions needed for understanding global health. Okay, so what do we do with our data? NASA data are distributed in approximately 14 distributed active archive centers across the United States. And if you want snow data, you go to NSIDC in Colorado. If you want other earth science data, you may go to the JESDISC in Maryland. So all you need to do to get these data is have an account. And also with these data, the data come with software and how to use it and how to display it. And that's very useful. So, in fact, some of you folks have used them in the past, but these are called the NASA DACs. Okay, sort of a new thing here at NASA, we're building up an Earth information system that not only that also provides the models so that you can run your science without having to develop your own models. So please look at this. This is something new we're very excited about. And a particular component of that is a terrestrial hydrosphere. Thank you. My mouth, whew, it's so dry.
Thank you, Michael. That was awesome. I'm like super excited by all these NASA missions and water quantity and water quality and even biology under the lake surface and river surface. That's like very exciting to the ecologists in the room. So next up, we're going to hear from Dr. Annie Feighery, CEO of mWater. Thank you.
My name is Annie Feighery. Today I will talk to you about the platform for which I'm the CEO and co-founder, mWater. mWater is a global technology platform for managing infrastructure in water and sanitation. It also serves as a operating system for governments and their stakeholders to manage, observe, and react to the data that helps to run all of these sectors. Our users are in 197 countries. Over 250,000 users represent governments, water agencies, the stakeholder NGOs, researchers, and they also have, well, first let me explain, they all use the platform entirely for free, without a relationship to us, much like you might use Google Docs. But we do make funded relationships with donors to create custom iterations of the platform or to advance features for further sectors. And we've done that in 32 countries. We've heard a lot today about the scope of the water crisis and the data needs to address it. The thing that we want you to understand is, from mWater's perspective, the best way to create massive amounts of quality data is to work with the ground level system operators who generate the data by doing their job. mWater is a platform that offers an app that is a free download in the iOS and Apple stores. It is available in 23 languages. It works on and offline. Our users use the app to do their work like mapping pipes or assessing fees, responding to leaks, mapping dams and assets of dams, monitoring dams, something that's very critical and on our mind this week. And then their supervisors oversee that data in the data management portal, which is a computer-based interface where they analyze the data, they create reports, they create data visualizations and maps in dashboards. And those dashboards then are able to be shared in collaboration with decision makers at their government and with donors. And the important thing about that is that they're making decisions then not on dead data in PDF files, but rather in live data, in real-time data, in dashboards fed by the app as it's coming in. Now, mWater is the largest database for water and sanitation data in the world. Running this gives us a unique perspective of seeing the 30,000 foot or the 10,000 meter from my Canadian colleagues view of the world with sector trends and best practices. We've distilled this into 3 core concepts. The first one I want to talk to you about is self-efficacy. My doctorate, my background is in public health. And in public health, all of behavior change rests on the theory of self-efficacy. This is a theory that taking up a behavior change is more likely if a person believes that they are capable of taking up that behavior change. If they could, they would. If they even tried it, they could. And the second is if they did it, it would matter. So you can think of the classic example of smoking cessation. And here, if a person wanted to consider quitting smoking, they would first consider, if I tried, could I? And if I did it, would it matter given other health conditions that I'm living with? And so in the behavior change that is adopting a data management system and a culture of data management, we see that institutions, whether it's institutions on the ground or donor institutions that are creating policies and helping to empower, that institutions have to believe that countries and local actors can manage quality data systems. And we have seen in all 32 countries where we work that the capabilities and the ability to is there on the ground in every case. And in every case that it was enacted, it did improve their work in water services provision. The second important issue is to consider extractive data practices. We're at the crossroads where we're fighting for the heart of data. Do we follow the bad practices of neocolonialism of the past, or do we adopt wonderful new trends of empowering and respecting, for example, countries' sovereign right to ownership of their own data? Data is the new sustainability. This is the thing that everybody is talking about. So it's really important for us to have this conversation right now. Academic research, there's represented at this table, is a great example. Traditionally, academic research was by definition an extractive activity. And I use that word extractive, the verb, on purpose, because it's like a jewel being mined and taken to another country and sold without benefiting the country from which it came. Now you have the emerging better directions like implementation science that are helping to turn this curve and to let academic research empower and strengthen countries. An example of this, what does this look like on the ground, is if you're going to conduct a study, align your data that you need to collect with the local or national indicators so that you're working to improve their data set in ways that's collaborative and comparable with local data. And make sure that you're sharing your data in real time, not after publication. And also, and third, and this is most important, partner with local researchers intimately, in a real way, in a way that they're co-authors and not names in your acknowledgements section. So then the other side of that is the investment model. We understand in our sector that 4 times more investment is needed in infrastructure and institutions if we're going to even come close to achieving SDG 6. One important part of that is the finance discussion, how to get more money. An important part also, though, is how to do more with the money you have. It's a mistake to create a parallel data system that competes with the existing government one instead of investing in the quality of it. It's also important to look at the actions of aid instead of as interventions that start and end as the beginning of investments. And data management systems are important places to invest. Third, we want to talk about a really important definition here. What is the difference between a data repository and a data management system? Here in venues like this, a lot of what we're talking about is data repositories. These are very important, large databases. We're probably all very familiar with HDX, one of the biggest of them, where people voluntarily contribute their PDF or their CSV documents of their data, and the institution then collates and or curates the data into data sets that can be used off the shelf in, say, a natural disaster for situational awareness. This is very important, but this is dead data and it's not aligned with national data sets country by country. When we talk about data management systems, what we're talking about is something by definition that has a front-end user interface. In mWater, that's the app. We have something that people use to do their job that's putting the data in, and data entry is not an extra activity. We also have data management systems are owned by the governments where they are, and while we want them to make their data open, it is their choice to. Here's some examples of some data management systems. In Haiti, USAID has partnered with mWater to create SIEPA, a national management system for urban water in Haiti. We call it SIEPA, not mWater, on purpose, because part of our learnings are to brand technology by the country and not by the aid terminology in order to help uptake of the technology. SIEPA is used across the CTEs, which are the utilities of Haiti. This is CTE Lakai, where ground level workers are using the app to map pipes, to report outages, to respond to outages, and that data is then being fed to the data management system, where the supervisors are looking at that data in terms of indicators. In this case, it's 13 KPIs, or key performance indicators, that the government has chosen to monitor their progress. These KPIs right now are things like reducing non-revenue water, improving on fees collected, but they want to expand the things that you've heard about today, like monitoring saltwater incursion or groundwater degradation. The next example is more rural. This is the government of Uganda. In this case, the Conrad Hilton Foundation has partnered with mWater to help the government to move what is the water atlas, a mapping of water points, into a management system. In a rural area, the water points being so far apart is one of the hardest things about keeping up-to-date awareness. But with mobile phones, with the app on mobile phones, and mobile phones being so common, we can really take the next step into making a monitoring system to know how the water points are doing. surveys can be run, pictures can be taken, and then anyone from the local district water office to the National Ministry of Water can open the platform and see in the water atlas what is the status, for example, of functionality. Functionality is a really important indicator to look at, especially in a place like Uganda, because it can often let you know the situation with equity and where important investments are needed. You can see in the third slide, for example, towards the north, in the third image, towards the north, there's a lot of water points that are completely abandoned. This is an area that had a lot of refugee activity, and abandoning those is a significant ambitious activity that the government wants to undertake. It becomes very evident in the data where they are. Returning to these three core concepts, I want to point out that here in 2023, we're standing at the inflection point midway through the SDGs. Looking forward, I think we can comfortably expect data to play a big role in the rest of the SDGs, but in the follow-on goals, I hope we call for a goal entirely dedicated to data. And we need to start now by deciding how to protect that goal so that it is meaningful. We need to take the lessons that we've learned to trust these governments that can do a great job managing their own data systems. We need to make sure that important stakeholders like academic institutions are by policy mandated to invest in and not extract with their activities. And most importantly, we need to look at creating a fluency among our policymakers to understand even the differences in kinds of data and which ones matter most to the governments that we all work to serve. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you for sharing your vision and all of the amazing work that you're doing in, I think, 197 countries. Okay, next up we have Dr. Claire Walsh from Newcastle University. And just for the audience members, you're welcome to post questions in the question and answer feature, using the question and answer feature, and we'll try to get to your questions if we have time.
Thank you, Sapna. Thank you for the invitation to speak on this panel. So the title of my presentation is Collaboratories for Water Security, that positive spin rather than that insecurity word in the panel title. So collaboratories are what we define them as collaborative laboratories, and these really are the sort of nuclei of this project, the Water Security Sustainable Development Hub that I'm part of at the moment. And by collaboratories, we mean a global suite of complementary collaboratories across the world that sort of enable all to meet on an equal basis to discuss and develop new ideas to address the challenges of water security for all. And by all, we mean researchers from many different disciplines. We mean project partners and stakeholders from communities through to industry, through to landowners. So this opportunity to come together to co-design and co-produce and co-evaluate. So I'm going to draw upon examples from across our 4 collaboratories in Colombia, Ethiopia, Malaysia, and India to sort of ask questions around, who has data, who is data for, and for what purpose. To pick up on the critical role of qualitative data. The fact that data doesn't always reveal all the issues and all the problems. Thinking about how we can integrate different sources of data. Also look a little bit around data analysis and development of tools to address particular issues by local communities. And then thinking about how we can use data to influence change. We've already heard the definition of water security, so I won't read that out again, but this definition sort of really highlights the wide range of issues and risks to people and to the natural and built environment and the economy and the political landscape. And there are many interactions between these elements that creates a sort of an intractable, interconnected, complex problem. And that's exacerbated by climate change and population growth. Adversely affecting the stability of global society and sustainable development issues. And there are many threats to water security, as we've already heard, such as floods and droughts, water quality and health, poor governance, lack of regulation, illegal markets, inequalities and inequities. And the challenges arise when we don't see all the parts of the problem. So these threats of water security, they don't occur in isolation to one another. So our approach in this hub is to consider that water security can only be achieved by building a resilience across the whole water system, sort of taking a systems approach rather than focusing on one particular individual part or group of people. And this simplified diagram here shows the broad subsystems of climate, water, governance, values, and land that come into play when you consider flood risk. And these are very complex subsystems in their own right, and they expand out really quite vastly. However, some of the challenges are difficult to see, and they can't all certainly be captured by data. So the first example I want to pick up on is in terms of understanding your stakeholders and the power dynamics that can occur between different stakeholder groups. So in any area of interest, a key starting point really is to identify who the stakeholders are, what their interests are, and what influence and power they have to make decisions or implement changes in a particular place. So this includes being aware of the data that is routinely collected by different organisations and agencies, and understanding whether that data is actually accessible, or who it's accessible to, and the quality of that data. And this analysis here was done by the Ethiopia Collaboratory. It includes that explicit analysis and power, and has identified potential coalitions and hidden actors that could be or will be important in achieving water security. And it also considered how power may affect the integration of indigenous peoples and local communities, picking up on gender equality and social inclusion of the solutions that they'll be proposing for the particular challenges here. And this leads us on to introducing the concept of qualitative data. One of the main limitations of quantitative data, that only gives you answers to the questions that you ask it. An ethical and equitable knowledge co-production requires a more in-depth understanding of people, their networks, and the local contexts in which we are, for the areas in which we're considering. So for that better understanding of challenges and tailoring of solutions, we really need to understand the intersection of the different social categories. Listening is important. So we need to draw upon local knowledge. We need to learn more about behaviour. You know, how do people interact with water and the related systems? Are there points of intervention for change? We need to understand what the coping strategies might be. You know, have communities adapted in the past to extreme events? How have they done that? Let's build upon that. Understanding more around the value of water. You know, what is the water being used for, when, and why? Could alternatives be viable? You need to have a good understanding of the local governance in a particular area as well. You know, who is influencing those decisions? Who are the gatekeepers? And the informal networks are really critical in understanding these complex issues, particularly around gender and equality. But neither quantitative or qualitative data can reveal all the challenges. And this is a sub-basin of Hamandi in the Upper Kalka River Basin in Colombia. And it highlights, firstly, one common challenge globally, that the administrative boundaries rarely align with basin boundaries, causing a challenge in itself. But the challenge highlighted here is one of conflict and tension that arise from land use and management. So in the upland areas, there is fragmented forest areas which have competing needs, from livestock and coffee farmers to mining. And the area is also a key water supply area and important for tourism. There's also informal land trading going on as well, that sort of disrupts power balances, and that is often unknown to governments. So all these are sort of leading to this local conflict and tension that yet it's difficult to capture with data. In our Ethiopia Collaboratory, one of the main issues they identified was insufficient or poor data, particularly in relation to hydrometric networks. So for the past 3 years, they've been collecting data on water quality, river trends, and rainfall through a citizen science campaign, and producing some really good data set, so we can see by the graph there. The Water Hub also developed a portable laboratory in a suitcase, which allows researchers to go out into sort of local areas or remote areas to screen for potentially hazardous water for pathogens, and using this sort of innovative technology that's fast and is accessible and gets a good representation of what water quality issues might be. They've been looking at how you use different remote sense data sets, and we've heard a lot about those already, where they're aiding to sort of build upon measurements for flood extents, for the development of early warning systems for flooding, and looking at how shrinking, or indeed in some cases growing lakes, are causing issues for water resources. They've been developing, based on all this knowledge, thinking about you know, how to influence decision makers where best to put a hydrometric network, and through the writing of policy briefs, trying to get to that information to the right people. And capacity development as well, you know, thinking about other ways to infill that data, whether it be through modelling as a particular approach. In India, the Collaboratory are demonstrating to various stakeholders how data is collected, analysed, and could be used to inform decision making. And they've developed a series of interactive tools that cover various water-related issues in the Yamuna River Basin and for the National Capital Territory of Delhi. I'll just pause and see if we get the slides back. In the interest of time, so I'll just carry on. Yeah, so the team in India have been developing these toolbox of interactive tools to try and help decision makers gain a better understanding of some of the issues, in particular around waterlogging and flood events that impact in the National Capital Territory of Delhi area. And this allows citizens to upload photos and observations of their events that they witness to build up that data set and to build up that evidence base as well. And then I was also going to show an example from Malaysia related to health, where they've been using data from different governance levels. So a lot of data was collected through a comprehensive questionnaire survey and focus groups with individuals and communities to gain a deep understanding of their relationship with water, sanitation, and hygiene issues, their behaviour towards WASH and the facilities that they have access to, and how, in terms of how they store water and prepare food, for example. And alongside this, they also did a sort of review of the formal governance policies and regulation, and made a number of suggestions of how that could complement these individual and community interventions and behaviour changes. With it being with an international collaborative project here, there's an opportunity for cross-collaboratory learning, and including we have a common data management platform. We share code through GitHub, and we also have the opportunity to share approaches. So in summary, which is my final slide, water security is conveyed at different scales, so different data and different methods and different analysis is used. We need to unravel all the complexities, but then we need to put them back together to actually tackle these issues of water security using a systems approach. We need to we need to expose those hidden voices and try and empower stakeholders at all levels. We need a mixed methods approach. We can't just rely on one way of collecting data. And then we need to think about how we effectively integrate all this available data to really understand the problem and really come up with solutions that inform decision makers about future needs, and that decision makers can also have a level of confidence in the outcomes that we are proposing. With that, thank you very much on behalf of all my collaborators.
Thank you. Sorry about the technological difficulties. Last but not least, it's my pleasure to welcome Kathleen Weathers. She's going to be talking about GLION. And I would personally like to say Kathleen was one of the first co-chairs of GLION, and it changed my research life. Not just mine, but I know of hundreds of scientists out there. So Kathleen, over to you.
Thank you, Sapna, and thanks to all of you for those amazing presentations. What I'd like to do, if I can advance, is talk a little bit about, in some ways, it's application of what we've heard, and in many ways, it's about hope for ways in which we gather knowledge together globally and apply it. I'm speaking on behalf of the Global Lake Ecological Observatory Network. There have been many leaders. You see the present and some of the past leaders here. There's also a steering committee that's international. And in fact, the power, the evolution, the possibility of GLION is all about its members. This is truly an organization that is shaped by its members. So it's not a surprise to this group or that group that there are about 117 million lakes on the planet. They don't cover a large area, but their importance is absolutely essential to all life, our economies, our health, life. And the lake water quality, I'm going to be focusing mainly on lake water quality because that's what a lot of GLION has addressed, is absolutely imperiled, as we've heard and you likely know. So I thought it would be worth going through a little bit of the history, because the history is deeply connected to these issues of data collection, using remote sensing and other tools. So in 2005, when GLION was a glimmer in computer scientists and lake scientists' eyes, the Observatory Network was recognizing that sensor technology for in-lake processes was improving, and we could now measure the pulse of lakes on the scale of minutes, and that it would transform our science. And in addition, we thought that actually, if we could share those data real time around the world and have these sensors in lakes around the world, we could understand more than we had ever understood before, because most scientists look at the lake that's close to them or they're passionate about, that's right next door. So that was GLION's first focus, this idea of connecting lakes and sensor data. So the value proposition at the time, early 2000s, was high frequency and big data. Big in our case is highly heterogeneous, that are discoverable, shareable, international collaboration. This is one of the first in our world, I think, global networks. And synthesis across scales so that we understand. It's kind of locally sown, globally grown understanding, creating knowledge. But by the 2010s, we realized this was not possible. It was not possible to build the cyber infrastructure. And as one of my old colleagues used to say, we were not encumbered by resources. So this is a grassroots network. It's bottom up. We did not have resources to make this happen around the world. Yet scientists were putting these buoys around the world. The other thing that we realized as we were growing this network is that in fact, science doesn't do itself, humans do science. So having the data and paying attention to only the data collection wasn't going to move us toward knowledge. And increasingly, we realized that diverse, with a capital D, networks of knowledge producers, scientists and non-scientists, is the way, the future of creating transformative knowledge. So we realized with feedback from the membership as we were growing, that we're actually 3 networks. We are still 3 networks. We're a network of lakes. And for those of you who collect data in the field, you look at this, say, beautiful buoys around the world, highly heterogeneous data. These are all installed in lakes for particular questions that are being answered in lakes. And we as a community bring those data together. It's a network of lakes. Oh, now I'm not advancing here. It's a network of data, and this is really important. We're not just about high frequency sensor data. It's so important to engage with the local folks who understand their lake ecosystems and low frequency data collection as well. And we have also created an app to help us collect those data. But most important, it's a grassroots, so everyone is there participating in GLIAN because they want to be, they're volunteering to be, network of people. And we are now at 900 members. When I started, we were probably at 40. And really important, about a third of those are early career, are graduate students. And we have been told in terms of network science that that's how you spell sustainability, is that the early career folks are coming in. 63 countries, 120 lake or so observation systems. So we've evolved through a couple of missions, and this is the most recent mission, and you'll notice that it's about people as well as data and knowledge and understanding. International team science. So we pay a lot of attention to that. And we've been asking ourselves this question about what keeps us together? How have we existed for almost 20 years? And how will we produce the science we produce, which is hundreds of papers now about global lakes. And it has to do with face-to-face, in situ, understanding the cultural issues surrounding the lakes meetings. And we were already doing virtual meetings before COVID, but connecting people to people. And that's where any resources we've had have been applied, is to get people together, because you never know what will come out of that. But I wanted to underline a couple of things. One is this ethos of data sharing, which is unusual for academic folks, which is we share data, but there's no need to have data, high frequency data or low frequency data for a lake. We share knowledge, and we share it collectively, and we also try to make it open source as well to publish those data. And that we have evolved to a network that promotes early career scientists. So we have them at the lead of many of these projects, and we who are more senior are co-leading from within. And I just wanted to point out that our meetings are all hand meetings, are not the usual meetings. We don't have plenary sessions for more than 1 or 2 talks. We break up into working groups. We work on products. This is where new collaborations get inspired. Much of Sapna's work, I think, started in some of these collaborations, and new ideas that come as a result of being in a particular place. You know, for a lake in Brazil, for example, and there's particular problems there, ideas come up for projects, for products. I also wanted to point out that our really strong GLIAN Student Association, which was also grassroots and very international, led to a fellowship program that we have led for a number of years, where we take cohorts of international students, focus on big data and big data skills, and also teach people how to be good collaborators and leaders in science. And I just wanted to point out for your sake, Michael, that one of our cohorts right now is working with NASA Goddard to imagine how the SDG mission, which is upcoming, might use those data coupled with in situ data to understand phytoplankton. Yep. What's also evolved grassroots style is when we go to a place to have a meeting, we engage with the local public. And that has been really powerful, and again, has bubbled up. This is a meeting in Canada where we've had a panel. These are community scientists who are interested in knowing what we're finding and how we should monitor. And it's resulted in co-production of knowledge and projects and a global network. that extends. So the community groups find that they have global colleagues that they can call on around the world. And so when you think about it as science at the interface, which again is just grassroots. And I mentioned that there are hundreds of publications now that have come out of these dynamic, inclusive collaborations. But again, grassroots, there are a number of groups that are now looking to questions at the interface of science. So here's a recent publication that talked about trust and trust in science, which is often has to do with people and interacting with people. And fostering community trust in science. And then this one, which is very recent, which is looking at plastic debris in lakes and reservoirs around the world, quite important for many, many issues. So again, to summarize, this is a grassroots network. It's focused on data science training, data science engagement, inclusive team science, where we actually work with social scientists and others to understand what that means and how we can put it into practice. Empowering early career and diverse, with capital D, groups of people and leadership. And we've also developed some models, some community models, again, open source, that we can use around the world. So really, how do we do GLION science? It's about the people and data and lakes combined. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kathleen. And thank you for sharing the story of GLION. I think it's like a great example of showing how you can build teams and inclusive teams and teams that work together to solve problems, which is just like the best way to go. So thank you. I think we'll be wrapping up with Mr. Alex Mejia. Unfortunately, we're a little low on time. So Mr. Mejia, if you would like to provide the closing remarks.
Thank you very much indeed. And we should have a group picture too.
Yes.
This is very important that we publish it. So dear participants, it's 5:06, 5:07, thank you, 5:07 at the United Nations Secretariat here in New York. And I'm not going to echo what has been said, but I do thank each one of the panelists for enriching this conversation today. You have benefited us greatly. I learned very many new things today, and I am very, very happy that you have accepted our invitation to be part of this dialogue. Now, this is just the beginning of it, right? So you can count the participants connected virtually with the commitment of UNiTAR and York University to build a global water academy that will actually offer the resources that you expect to have when it comes to capacity building, research, and sources of information that actually make a difference. And what I want to say before we go is that two ideas I was saying. Everything that is happening today is happening, we are at the epicenter of what sustainable development actually is. I've been a career diplomat and a senior government official, and I can tell you and I can assure you, for those of you that are not here, that whatever is being debated in this building today, tomorrow, and in the 2 weeks ahead will actually affect us, hopefully in a positive manner, greatly. And the reason why I say that, this is my second message, is because we are late. We need your help. We need your commitment. We need you to be part of this global quest to build a better planet for everyone. The SDGs are a roadmap, and water, as my colleague Kaveh is still here with us, say when he took the podium, water affects everything. Water is not isolated to one sustainable development goal. We have to do a better job when it comes to water in a holistic manner. And we have to do a better job to actually bring to fruition the sustainable development goals in the way that 193 member states envisioned a few years back, literally in September 2015, in the same building where we are today. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for your stamina and endurance over an hour and a half and more. And again, our commitment to make a difference. We will send a thank you note for all of you that have registered, and you will have the link to these presentations. With that, muchas gracias. This concludes this webinar, but don't leave to the panelists. We'll have an official picture. Thank you again. Can you join us here? If you took the